What's up, Bucs Squad? I'm your host, Jaron. Unfortunately, I'm going to tell you why the Bucs season is officially over.
And I'm Marcus Ray. I'm going to tell you the exact moment in the first half I knew Carolina was going to win.
And I'm Ryan Lavoie, and I'll tell you why this season has been exhausting.
Hey, Tampa Bay, it's the Buccaneers squad. Everything Tampa Bay Buccaneers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of the Sunshine State, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. With a touch of the Buccaneer way, the Buccaneer Squad Show starts now.
What's up, Bucs Squad? Real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Like I said, I'm your host, Jaron. We got a packed show for you today. We're going to break down the offense, break down the defense, go around the NFL, look at some scores across the league, and then we will finish with our player of the game segment. But to start things off, obviously Panthers knock off the Buccaneers 23-20. They couldn't muster up any of that late game magic that they had early in the season, but really haven't had it later this season. Carolina hits the field goal late in the game with just over 2 minutes left. Bucs are driving and immediately a false start, and then the pick, which looked like a miscommunication between Baker and Mike. I was telling the guys beforehand, I had a Christmas thing I was at, and unfortunately where I live, they had Dallas on the Fox channel, so I didn't get to watch much of the game, so I was going through it on my phone, but I felt like every single time I looked at my phone, it was false start, holding, unnecessary rough. Even though I know it was like 8 penalties for 56 yards, legal man downfield was another one, but I felt like some of those was like it was declined because it was a third down and they didn't go anywhere, but it just felt like penalties killed them. One of them was right out of the 2-minute timeout, false start, and I just don't know how that stuff continues to happen.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think that it just, again, shows you the lack of discipline that this team just cannot find a higher level of execution. They had a really rough time with right tackle Luke Gedeke today. He had committed a couple of those false starts. I think he had the hold, allowed a sack. I mean, he had a tough go of it against the Carolina team towards the bottom of the league in sacks. So, they just continue an offense to be evasive of the big moments. And, ironically, when the situation you talked about with 2:20 to play, Carolina takes the 3-point lead, and how the Bucs have just fundamentally changed as a team late in football games this year. First 6 weeks of the season, Bucs down 3, 2:20 in the clock, 2 timeouts. That's at least a field goal incoming from Tampa, probably a touchdown, the way the first 6 or 7 weeks went.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since then, how are they going to mess this up next? They're going to commit penalties. They're going to turn the ball over, just have a tough sequence of play calling. No matter what it's been, the Bucs have been fundamentally different in the key moments. And that's how it goes in the National Football League. Bad teams are not defined by blowouts. Bad teams are defined by mis-executing the key moments in the fourth quarter. They lose a ton of one-score games. And this team has fallen into that trap where I think the early success gave them an overconfidence to where, if we've had an issue, we'll figure it out when it matters the most. And Tampa's not been able to do that ever since that bye week, starting with the New England game. And so I just think that this offense, again, can you say it was awful for 4 quarters? No. But even their offense is so scared of certain elements, maybe their weaknesses, and also the defense, because one of the key points of this game, and it was mentioned on the broadcast several times, is that Josh Grizzard said, we're going to run the ball 30 plus times. Well, they did that, and that's not a bad moniker to have, but we've been talking all year long, lamenting the fact that the Bucs aren't healthy, and Mike Evans isn't out there, and Chris Godwin's not out there, and when can Jay McMillan get back? What does he have? And the moment they're all back, it's like, we got to run. We got to make sure we run all the time. And it's like, that has to be more about the defense than about your actual offense, because you're as healthy as you've been all season long on the offense. That is, we are concerned if our defense is on the field a lot. We want to control time possession. And that's disheartening to hear when you have this offense that ranked in the top 5 in the league last year. You're the most healthy you've been this season, and it's first down handoff, first down handoff, first down handoff with no play action game or anything to complement it. So this team just continues to be very conservative. It continues to just not be able to find any higher level of concept or execution when the game matters the most.
And I do want to correct myself real quick. I said the false start happened out of the 2-minute timeout, happened out of the quarter breaks going into the fourth quarter. First play of the fourth quarter was a false start. So, and I still don't know how that happens when you had a whole quarter off.
Sure.
And then you come out and false start.
Well, I think this offense just isn't clutch. And you can see it in 2-minute situations. I think when they start the game, like this very first drive, it was very apparent, Bucky had some nice runs. They were able to go down. They throw the touchdown pass to Evans, and they answered the field goal by the Panthers, okay? And then the defense gets a stop, whatever. But then that offense, they got a favor on that penalty on that field goal. I've never seen a penalty like that in my life. And so they didn't, I just don't think they capitalized off of that. They got in the goal line, low red zone area, and they weren't able to capitalize. And then you see Tucker running the ball, for his life on third down, and they settle for a field goal. I think right there, this offense and the defense needs a 2-score lead. And in a heavyweight fight, you find out if you have a chin or not. I compare a lot of things to boxing. So I think styles make fights. I think it was too much pressure for the Bucs for 4 quarters offensively, for Josh Grizzard to come out and stick to that 12 personnel package, one back, 2 tight ends. They had a lot of success with that in the first half. I just think they missed their opportunity when they had to settle for a field goal and only go up 10-3. So when you look at it, they had a chance to ice that first half. Carolina should have never got the football back. And right when they got the football back, that's the moment that at the top of the show I'm talking about. Carolina goes down and they score a touchdown. I think that took the wind out of the Bucs' sails, even though the Bucs did come out swinging in their first drive in the third quarter. Obviously, Baker had to use his legs and bail them out. And then, they go down and they score. But this offense can't trade punches with anybody. This offense can't score quickly. This offense can't, I don't want to say can't, but does not throw the ball over anybody's head. If you look at it as what the 2 big plays that Carolina had, they weren't able to match that. They shot themselves in the foot offensively with the penalties. And then even on that last drive, when they started with their backs to the wall and then they moved the ball down the field in that 2-minute situation, they never quite got in any type of rhythm. Baker still had to try to make something happen with his legs once again. So when you're relying on a non-running quarterback to actually save you with his legs and not his feet, I think you're asking for problems. And then I don't think Baker was ever comfortable. I mean, he made some great throws. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he ever felt quite comfortable. We saw Mike Jordan kind of blow another defensive stunt and assignment where I believe that linebacker, forgot his name, but he came from the right side and wrapped all the way around to the left, and he came free. And it's still some miscommunications there. Luke obviously didn't play his best game. I don't know if noise was a factor. I'm not sure what their cadence was, whether it was some type of silent signal where he kind of anticipated when the ball was going to be snapped. A lot of times you see offensive linemen hold hands, and so that tackle doesn't have to listen for the count. As soon as that hand drops, he knows to get into his assignment. I thought they ran the ball extremely well. And I think Carolina is almost like a bend but don't break. You want Tampa Bay to run the ball 30 times because then that's a ball control situation. The defense is not going to bail them out of anything. And then if they're settling for field goals in key moments, then who cares how many yards they run the ball? We saw that the last game. Run it, and then we'll stop you and then get the ball back. And I just don't think this offense can truly operate outside of a 2-score lead. And I just haven't seen them since the bye week deliver that clutch drive to ice the game. And then obviously you had Mike running his route. Baker was a little bit under duress. He thought Mike was going to keep running. Mike thought it was a scramble drill because Baker was in trouble. So now he's trying to find some grass and get open, and Carolina made him pay. So I just think offensively, I give him a C-. I mean, I don't think it was good, but I don't think it was overly terrible though either.
I feel like when I watch this offense, they have an identity crisis on their hands. And really even back when Tom was there, they were a throwing team. They threw the ball all over the field. They really haven't been good at running the football. I mean, they've had some decent running seasons, but overall they haven't been great at running the football. And I felt like this year they started out more as a throwing team and Baker was MVP and all this stuff. And then as the season has gone on, then they've kind of tried to change. No, let's be a running team. Let's try to, like as Ryan mentioned, we want to run it 30 times in this game. Like they came out and want to run the football despite finally having all their weapons at receiver. And I've mentioned this a few times, but I see it so much, especially in short yardage situations, that they just think they're this team that can just throw it out there and they're going to power run it and they're going to gain 2, 3, 4 yards for the touchdown, for the first down, whatever. And they even throw Vita in. They've done that a couple times. And I don't know if it's worked one time that they've tried that. But that's just not them. They are not a team that's just going to come off the ball, blow you 2, 3 yards back, and just walk in for a touchdown. And I think that kind of was the mistake on that 3rd and 2 with Sean Tucker, where he's now running for his life and he gets stacked for a loss. And again, and that's another thing I've talked about, where why isn't that Rachaad White? Rachaad White is the one that is kind of a power. Now, he wouldn't have been able to do anything in that situation either. But I'm just saying, but why isn't Rachaad White your guy for that situation? Because he is more of a power runner than the other guys. But I just don't feel like they have an identity offensively. And as Marcus said, maybe not good, but I thought it was a solid offensive performance. But the thing is, because of all the mistakes they make offensively with penalties, how bad the defense is, although we'll talk about them next break, they can't play solid. They have to play very good to overcome that stuff because they play very undisciplined football.
Well, and look, I think that though when I'm analyzing what the Bucs are trying to accomplish offensively, and I mentioned it in the first kind of statement there, is that I think that they're worrying about their defense as much as that they're worrying about their offensive execution. And, I don't mind them trying to establish the run. I agree with Marcus's point that, Carolina is, they've got a couple great corners like J.C. Horn, who's, I think, second in the league in interceptions. And they do tend to kind of let you pick up some yards, but really stifle you late in drives. I totally understand that. But I never have seen this year, I feel like at any point, be like, man, this play action game is great, because that's one of the things that you do off of the run, especially in this league where, okay, there's very few teams that just can actually run the ball thoroughly for 4 quarters and feel like they have a great offensive output. Something else gets set up because of the run. And Tampa's a solid run team, but they're not one of those teams where they can just do this for 4 quarters and overwhelm and completely destroy a defensive front to the point where they're so tired they can't defend anything. There's not enough of that. And so what you have to parlay that with is the ability to have a good play action game with the wide receivers that you are paying a lot of money and have used high draft choices on to be able to execute these more explosive plays. Again, I think I mentioned it the other week. This feels like the 2022 Bucs. They're just kind of trying to eke their way down the field instead of finding a way to be more explosive or have opportunities in play action passing to, again, generate these plays where it does not have to be a 16-play drive, because that's what teams like Carolina bet on. They bet that you're not going to be able to execute for 15 or 16 consecutive plays. And a lot of teams succeed with that. And so I feel like there's just this lack of understanding of, okay, we've got a solid run game. How does that help the passing game? How does this help explosive plays? How does this help us execute in the red zone? And I just don't see enough creativity. I just don't see enough coming out of that to be able to make this offense go up to this next level.
Another problem that they have, which we thought was a good problem, was that everybody was healthy. So how are you going to figure in Mike, Chris, J-Mac, Emeka, all of those pieces into this, to complement a run identity at this point of the season? And so when you really watch that game, outside of just that one fade ball that Mike Evans caught on Jackson, which was a great throw, actually ran that same play last year in that last regular season game. So for Emeka to only have one, which was a big one, looks like Carolina said, go ahead and run it, but I'm not going to let Mike and Emeka beat me. Chris Godwin can make his 4-yard catches on 3rd down to keep your drive going, but that doesn't beat you. And so I just think that there were some times where they did do a good job of sustaining drives. And to your point, Ryan, they tried to shorten the game to protect their defense, and I think it backfired.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they definitely, again, it was one of those things that we've talked about in the past with the passing game. Emeka was just taken out of the game again. It was a big catch. It was 40 yards, but that's your one catch of the game. And this was a guy that early in the season we're like, he's easily getting off as a rookie of the year, but now not so sure. But all right, so coming up next, we're going to break down the defense. So don't go anywhere. Well, car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. With Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want, because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus makes the whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else, so you can shop the way you want. Use Car Guru's deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. You'll love being able to filter by everything mileage, trim, features, so you're only seeing cars that actually fit what I need. Their price drop alerts are a lifesaver. You get notified the second a car you're watching becomes a better deal. So Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com, cargurus.com. All right, we're back with more here on these Bucs Squad Show. Just a reminder, this is something extra we do twice a week. This doesn't take anything away from what James did. Hopefully you watched his live earlier today. If you haven't, it's on the YouTube channel, so definitely check that out. But let's dive into the defense. And both of you guys mentioned the moment where you thought Carolina was going to win the game, and that was that late second half drive. I would also marry that with the third quarter drive, because so Tampa Bay goes on the 14-play 66-yard touchdown drives, waste 8 minutes and 19 seconds offensively. And I was like, man, okay, that's a really good drive. First off, we gave the break to the defense even longer. Now you've taken the lead back after that gut punch right before half. And then the defense turns around and immediately allows 11 plays, 65 yards for that takes 6 minutes and 33 seconds. 2 drives took up the whole third quarter. But that right there was when I was like, okay, again, all that excitement I got that Tampa just scored has been taken away immediately, just like it was right before half.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I like Dean a lot, but I'm not sure if he understood the situation on that touchdown pass to McMillan. And I'll tell you what I mean. They were in zero coverage, which means you have no help. So when you saw him line up about 7 yards off, then that means that Tybo sent a 6-man blitz. So that means there's 5 defenders left to cover 5 people. Even if 2 of them stays in to block and max protect, which I thought was great protection for the Panthers, there's only 2 routes that you're going to see in versus zero coverage in that situation. You're either going to get the deep ball or you're going to get a slant, a very short inward breaking slant. And for him to allow McMillan to run past him like that with poor technique, I just thought right there, when arguably probably your most probably best cover guy, I would say. I know Morrison and Parrish are young guys, but that play for me, I think it just took the wind out of the Bucs' sails defensively. Now the offense responded in the third quarter, that first drive, but at that moment, it told the Panthers that they can go up top on you. And not only can they go up top with the deep ball, they came back and did it again on that drive that led to the field goal when Morrison got beat on the deep pass or pass interference. So you have to understand that I'm a former defensive back, and we have to be a short memory, high confident person that can shake off bad plays and good plays. But the thing about playing defensive back, it still lives in your memory bank. It still does make you second guess a few things. And Todd Bowles didn't want to call cover zero again. He couldn't even try to send that much pressure because he was afraid to give up that deep one. So I think defensively, when they played zone, they got picked apart when it mattered at certain times. And then when he tried to throw the kitchen sink at him, they gave up the big one. They didn't necessarily um, bottle up Bryce the way you would have liked to see. And you can and the proof is on the other touchdown pass. Was his name? Was it number 0? Um, Javion, I think. He caught that ball. That was complete. That should have been a sack. I mean, that could have been a difference in the game where you get him on the ground there and they settle for 3 points. It's a different ball game. The problem is you got defensive backs now buying, and I'm not going to name anybody, but a couple of them just bought a ticket and stood right there and watched the game like this. Oh, let's see what Bryce has going on. Meanwhile, they have a guy wide open in the end zone, and so like when that kind of stuff happens, it tells me that there's a lack of discipline there. There's a situation where people don't trust each other and they're waiting for somebody else to make a play. That guy's name was Sanders. That's who it was. So
Jatavian Sanders.
Jatavian
yeah.
Sanders,
Yeah.
So when you let Bryce make a play like that at home, then the defensive backs, they lose confidence in the pass rush. The guys up front lose confidence on the guys with the guys on the back end because they're not going to cover their people. And then it's a complete debacle. So I didn't think they tackled well either. I thought there were some missed opportunities. They didn't cover well, with the exception of, I want to say, the Panthers' second drive. When they went down there, Parrish had a nice pass breakup. Morrison suffocated somebody, and the Panthers had to settle for that field goal, and it made it 10-6. Other than that series right there, I mean, there was a couple of plays. Obviously, Dennis had made that heads-up play when Bryce had fell down and got up, and the guy stepped on his foot. And then Lavoie made a couple of nice tackles too. He showed some flashes of being his own self, but it never quite came together as a team effort. And the last thing I'll say too where I think Carolina kind of had Tampa Bay's number is on that first third down when Antoine Winfield Jr. got beat on that little 8-yard outcut. He was right there. The problem was he doesn't play underneath covers a ton in that flat area like as a down nickelback safety. He's normally the guy that's in the middle. And sometimes when you don't rep it out and those live bullets aren't flying, I mean, he was there. He just didn't look up the receiver. I believe that was the very first third down. So no. It was in the second quarter, I think, because they were going to the left on the first one. Anyways, I just feel like there was some times there where they could have got off the field on third down and they didn't. But the defense didn't give up a ton of yards either, but they weren't out there that long. Tampa Bay dominated the time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes, okay? Nice job there. But in those 25 minutes, Carolina still got 6 out of 12 on third down. And they were able to make the plays when it mattered. And I thought, they didn't necessarily run the ball extremely well, obviously, but they did have about 3 plays that went for double-digit rush yards in key moments. So I just feel like Bryce won the game, and I just feel like their defense played well enough when it mattered, especially I'm talking about Carolina's defense at the very end. And the reason I know we're talking about the Bucs defense, but I would have liked to see the Bucs get a turnover the same way Carolina did, and they just couldn't create any turnovers either.
And I think that's kind of what Todd Bowles was trying to go for at the end of the first half with the blitz that he did bring. Obviously, Carolina at that point out of timeout, so you're trying to sack or get a strip fumble, something like that, to end the half. But Jamel misexecuted, as you went over, Marcus, because again, the one thing you can't do with 12 seconds left in the half is get someone past you. I mean, you just cannot do that. You got to play for the slant. If they're going to throw the middle of the field with under 12 seconds left in the half, and that's going to probably end the half or at least be the last real play, they can maybe get up and spike it and get the field goal off. So that sequence, again, set up by the offense going 3 and out with the run, the next misexecuted screen. I think there was a false start, and then the 3rd and 17 short pass that went incomplete. When you have the ball under 2 minutes, you have to keep the ball from the other team. So it's first very poor by that offense to not be able to generate a first down and get yourselves a scoring opportunity. And then the defense to give up a touchdown. That needed to be, by the time the Bucs were done with their first drive of the second half, that needed to be 17-6. if you get 2 field goals instead of that touchdown, 16-6, or heck, have a lot of fun and score twice and have it up to be 20-6 or 24-6 even. You completely missed that opportunity. So that's when I felt the game had completely changed. And I just thought that was not worth the reward to bring that blitz, given how poor the Bucs have been at generating pressure. I felt that, okay, the Panthers had 1, maybe 2 more plays before their kick. You just keep them in front of you. Sure, they're going to get a shorter field goal, go with the lead at half. So I didn't love the call, and obviously the execution made it look like an even worse call. And then the other thing I'll say is, again, I would say that this, again, was an effort by the defense that was helped a little bit by Carolina's shortcomings. The couple of sacks the Bucs got were Bryce Young tripping over a lineman or over himself, and then the Bucs getting the backfield. So I felt Carolina helped them out a couple of times. I did think that Tampa did a good enough job with the rush defense. One of those runs was a reverse play, which, again, you just credit Carolina for having a great trick play there and getting Jimmy Horn out in the open field in the first drive. So I thought they contained Rico Dowdle pretty well. Chuba Hubbard was okay. They did have meaningful runs. They'd execute 3rd and 2 and get 3. So some of that, it does have to go into account that Carolina did what they wanted to do, but they didn't let Carolina control the game, because on the other side of things, you mentioned the time possession, which of course Tampa couldn't take advantage of, but Carolina likes doing that usually. I mean, they're not a big passing team. They like to run with Rico Dowdle, who's now a 1,000-yard rusher. They like to complement him with Chuba Hubbard, and then they usually win time of possession that way. So I think that they, again, by no means excelled. They didn't create the turnover Marcus was referring to. They did not just stymie Carolina multiple drives in a row or anything like that. But they gave what is now a much healthier offense. They gave them enough of a window to be able to achieve success. And again, that's unfortunately, we're at the stage in the season where Tampa can't do better than that defensively. They can give their offense a chance, and they can't actually go and win a game with how they played.
Yeah, you mentioned the run game defense. I know they allowed 101 yards at 5.1 yards per carry, but they held 4 guys all under 30 yards. I mean, Dowdle was under 30. Hubbard was under 30. That was something coming in the game we didn't think really would be able to happen. And as you mentioned, the one big one is the Jimmy Horn, nice 25-yard run that they popped. But it's one of those weird things, because you look at it and it's like, man, I didn't think the defense played terrible, because we've seen terrible the last few weeks. Like, I didn't think it played terrible. But on the flip side, the Panthers scored on 5 out of 8 drives. So then it's like, is that actually terrible? Like, I know, like that. I mean, that's the name of the game. I mean, scoring obviously is the name of the game. And so scoring on 5 out of 8 drives is not a good number at all. But it's just so weird, because you watch them and you're like, man, that's not a terrible performance, because we've seen that. But on the flip side, they scored on 5 out of 8. So it's hard to grade them. I mean, I still would probably give them a D or D plus. I mean, just because of they scored on 5 out of 8 drives, like I said. And a big part of that was the reason why they didn't have as many drives is because Tampa was doing so good with the clock management side of it. But technically it's 5 out of 9, but I'm not counting the kneel down at the end. So 5 out of 8 drives. So it was a weird performance for the defense.
I think too, like, if you want to grade them statistically, 275 yards, 174 passing, 101 rushing. That's pretty solid. I mean, that's about a C plus B. I mean, and if you go off the scoreboard, they only gave up 23 points. So it's not like the sky was falling today in Charlotte. I think you have to look at situational football. I think you have to look at the drive that led to the go-ahead field goal. That right there was just not, that just it's unacceptable. You got to go with that last drive in the second quarter. Like, when you start looking at the drives that matter, that's where I think you have to really look yourself in the mirror as a defensive guy like Todd Bowles and say, okay, what was I thinking, or what was he doing, or why did I call this or that? So I think in situational football, I don't think they played extremely well. And when Bryce was able to get out of there, I mean, these guys are going to make a play, but when he was able to throw that pass to Sanders, I think the defense there should have held to a field goal. So I think those 3 drives for me is where you have to be evaluated. And then you always have to look at the turnovers and sacks and then say, how well did you play? And then tackling. So with all of those combined, I just don't think it was good enough to win. Scoreboard, yeah. If you give up 20 points in the NFL, 23 points, you probably should have a chance to win. And they did.
And the one thing I'll say is I just feel like, and this is probably way oversimplified, and I get that you don't really think of the game this way, and I understand that. But if I'm just telling somebody what the struggles the Bucs defense has had and what we've expected out of the Bucs offense when they were supposed to get healthy, if I've got 2 drives under 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the on both sides of the ball, and the defense only gives up 3 points, I like my chances of at minimum going to overtime in that game if it's a tie game, and probably scoring a touchdown at some point. Again, if we're under the assumption that this offense was going to be able to excel. But the reality is they gave up 3 points. It was the 3 points, obviously. But the Bucs offense had 2 cracks at it with 7 minutes left and with 2 minutes left, and they still came up with a bagel. And so that's why I'm saying I've got to be fair. I feel like the defense, while did not excel, they did give the offense a chance, and they did not take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, coming up next, we're going to look at some scores around the NFL, including some games that are going on right now. So don't go anywhere. Well, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in at every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I know if you were watching the game earlier today, maybe you wanted to place a bet on the rushing totals, or maybe you wanted to, on the negative side, wanted to place a bet on Baker throwing an interception. That's stuff that you can do on FanDuel, or if you just want to bet the total or the over-under or the spread, stuff like that. That's all things you can do on FanDuel. FanDuel, the game is fast, and so can you. All right, it's time to look around the NFL, to look at some of the games that stood out to us. Saturday, I got to watch a lot of football on Saturday. Philadelphia, Washington was a fun one. They basically pulled away late. Green Bay and Chicago might have been the game of the year so far. I thought that was a really exciting game because it looked like Green Bay was going to win fairly easily. Obviously, Jordan Love gets injured, Malik Willis comes in. But some of the throws that Caleb Williams was making late in that game were just unreal. It's why he was the number 1 pick.
Well, I'll tell you right now, man. I mean, that throw at the end is why quarterbacks get paid the money that they do get paid. I mean, and just think about the situation that they were in. And then, I mean, you get the onside kick, you're losing, you find a way to get on the board, get a stop. And then it's like, that's the kind of stuff that happens for teams that are destined to go to the NFC Championship. I mean, you just win those type of games. And when you win those type of games against a divisional opponent, well, are we talking about I'm talking about the Packers and the Bears.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. But I was thinking Rams and Seahawks, but I'm sorry, that's what I was looking at. I'm talking about the Packers and the Bears. So when you look at Caleb Williams, and for me, that game was one that said the Bears might be for real. Now, I know they were playing that little softer schedule, and they had a lot of success, but they're very physical. Obviously, they run the ball. They do a lot of good things. But when your quarterback can make that throw, rolling to his left, kind of sidestepped in the pocket, and those type of plays, I think, define your season. And I think you have to step up and do that type of stuff if you're going to make a run. To your point too, Jaron, this Rams and Seahawks, I mean, that was just a fun game to watch. I would have hated to be a guy that bet either way. But I'm just saying that's what the NFL should be about at this time of year. I mean, what the Seahawks are able to do, you know, against a Rams team that's actually their defense kind of been getting hit off lately. They started off pretty good. But as I move through like today's games, I was very surprised that the Chargers and the Cowboys got off to that track meet like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I always root for Jim Harbaugh and those Chargers, but I thought for a second there, like, where's the defense? Mentor, where's this defense? And then we saw it in the second half, the way they suffocated the Cowboys and didn't even give up a point. So that one, to me, for the Chargers, just told me that get Dallas out of here, and Chargers, y'all just hang around for a second. And I'll tell you what, um, the Browns almost clipped the Bills. Like you don't want to lose to the Browns, right? So when you look at what happened in last week's game with the Bills and the Patriots, sometimes those type of roller coaster rides, it takes in a lot of emotional energy out of you. Either way, win or lose, it just kind of drains you. But once again, the Bills found a way to win, played some pretty good defense against a bad team. Um, but the games we have going on now, this Jaguars offense, man, they're kind of giving this Broncos defense everything that they don't want on the road. I mean, I played, in Denver. That's a tough place to play. I mean, I know it's probably a different stadium now that I played in, but just the atmosphere, period. Um, I think that's a huge game for Jacksonville,
Mhm.
and those other ones really don't matter. Steelers and Lions, I don't think people really gave them a shot, much of a shot. I don't know why you don't give the Steelers much of a shot, but they're probably going to find a way to win that game in Detroit. That'll be huge for them too. But I think starting off with Thursday night on to Saturday, it just let us know it was going to be one of those weekends. And then always, we just don't know. I think we kind of know what to expect from the Bucs. I mean, we've been picking against them on this show, and that was a great game in its own right. It wasn't exciting, but it was a good football game as far as it being close and could have went either way. But I think the implications that game had was right up there with Chicago and Green Bay.
I think the shame of the Bucks falling apart like this is that you're really in store for a hard to predict playoffs with Kansas City out in the AFC, with the Ravens struggling. You mentioned the Bills; they'll be in the playoffs, but they likely will not win the division. Those are the three stalwarts in the AFC. If you wanted to throw in just the fact that Burrow had been to the Super Bowl, okay, they're nowhere near the playoffs in Cincinnati, so something's going to change dramatically there. And even in the NFC, with the way the Eagles have been just very much slumping offensively, they've been just doing enough to get by. You've seen that the Packers, which was one of the favorites in the NFC, they are definitely not, or does not look like they'll win the division, and they're just going to be holding on to a 6 or a 7 seed. It's going to be really hard to predict. It's a lot of fun, but I do go back to that Thursday night game with the Rams and Seahawks, and just how Seattle got off the mat there. That was the first time they had won from being down 15 plus in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, that's 2 Thursday night games in a row where a 2-touchdown lead was blown. And so, I think that NFC West has just been such a great division. The shame of it is, back when Tampa was playing competent football, they beat 2 of those teams. And so that is going to, again, make all of this very frustrating, but it also makes it to where I have no idea how this will shake out. But that was a heck of a football game. As you mentioned, Marcus, we got some really good games going on right now. That Steelers-Lions game is important. Detroit trying to stay in the wild card picture. Pittsburgh trying to stay in front of Baltimore. I do believe they play each other again, though, so that game will likely decide it. And then the Jaguars, man, I mean, again, on the road right now, playing great ball against Denver. So, again, I think this thing is wide open. I don't even know if there's a clear favorite. I mean, again, I don't even think the Seahawks are better than the Rams personally. But the Seahawks had again, heck of a comeback and took advantage there. So I have no idea. Again, it's a lot of fun as a neutral fan, but again, as someone that has very much vested interest in Tampa, it's been so frustrating to know that this thing is so wide open that it could have been any one of 10 different teams that could feel like they have a great chance at making the Super Bowl. And then again, now you've seen what's happened the last 6 or 7 games. So I think it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was watching the Rams Seattle game, and when Darnold threw that interception down 30-14 in the fourth, I just went to bed. I was like, this one's over. And then I wake up to a group chat I have of people just going nuts that Seattle pulled off the comeback. But as you guys mentioned, Jaguars, where have they come from? The way they've been playing the last 2 weeks, because it's helped my fantasy team a lot. I picked up Trevor Lawrence before last week, and he scores 6 touchdowns. Today he's already got me 30 points with 3 touchdowns. So I'm loving the Jaguars right now. But another game, it's not like a sexy game or anything, but just the Cardinals and Atlanta game right now. Last time I saw it was 16-16.5. That
Still
obviously it still is okay. Yeah, and I know that has some implications still. Falcons can't win the division, but I mean, there's some implications there in terms of Tampa now. If Atlanta were to fall, Tampa would, if they win the next 2, they're in for sure. Like they win the division and they're in, kind of thing.
Yeah,
go ahead,
if
Ryan.
you don't mind. So here's the implication with that. So what Tampa can't have is they can't win the division if all 3 teams tie at 8-9. So in other words, if Tampa loses to Miami next week, but Carolina also loses to Seattle, and then the Bucs beat the Panthers. If the Falcons had won out to get 8-9, it creates a 3-team tie. Atlanta can't win it, but Carolina would have a better record because they will have swept Atlanta and Tampa only split with Atlanta. So that's the implication, is if you have a 3-team tie. If Atlanta loses another game, then it doesn't matter. If Tampa beats Miami, it doesn't matter. But it would be that 3-team tie at 8-9. That's where you don't want to have that happen. Otherwise, you get the Falcons to lose, then heck, even though it would be abysmal if the Panthers lose to Seattle and the Bucs lose to Miami, but the Bucs still control their own destiny with a win week 18 there against Carolina.
And the Dolphins look terrible with Quinn Ewers back there now. The Bengals are one of the worst defenses. They couldn't do anything in that one. Go ahead, Marcus.
Oh yeah, I was actually trying to figure that out, Ryan, as far as that implications with Atlanta, and they were actually down early in that game to the Cardinals. The Cardinals somehow play decent offense, but they just find a way to lose. And like the Falcons, man, you still want to play for something. And I think to go for a 3-way tie and not be a division champion, but have the same record and have a say. I mean, those guys are playing for that. Also, you're still playing to be evaluated. Like, just because the season is over doesn't mean that you're a guaranteed roster guy next year. I mean, you actually get evaluated a lot harder when you don't have a postseason coming, and then they start thinking, hey, should we keep this guy or should we keep this guy? I mean, but I think it's pretty wide open too. I mean, I think it's going to come down to who plays who and where, because that can make a big difference. I mean, you start talking about that NFC West, NFC North. I mean, I don't think anybody really Chicago, man. I don't think you want to go in there and play them. But I think if Jacksonville can find a way to win in Denver, they can break the Da Vinci Code a little bit. It kind of reminds me of a college football playoff, like the 2 upsets that we saw, if you want to call them upsets. It's almost like it's just as wide open as that. If you put the best 8 teams in the NFL right now, 4 on both sides, and line them up, I think it's a roll of the dice on, who comes up out of that thing. So, I mean, the Rams, I like them. I like Seattle. I like Chicago. I like Denver. I don't think the AFC has that team over there. We thought it might have been the Patriots. Buffalo, I'm not sure. You can't really trust Pittsburgh or the Ravens. So it has to be Denver, unless Jacksonville goes in there and pulls this off, and they scored again, and they're up 7 now.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, still though, if it is Denver, okay, that's still a 2nd-year starting quarterback. I know Bo Nix played a lot of college ball, but that's still a guy that's not played a lot of these high leverage NFL games. If you're talking New England, that's Drake May. That'd be his first NFL start. The reality is that all the top quarterbacks in the AFC, or at least the ones that have been top coming in this year, obviously there can be a change in the guard at any time, but a lot of the top quarterbacks in the AFC, Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes, they're either going to be at home or they're going to be on the road. And Josh Allen, of course, the one that's going to certainly be in the playoffs, going to be on the road in all likelihood. Whereas you're going to walk in these buildings with these teams that probably have better teams around them, but they have not necessarily won as much because of their quarterback. Bo Nix, again, has been playing better, but that defense in general until today has been very good. Drake May has been very good for New England, but again, they also have a really good ground game, good defense. So it's so many teams that we're not used to after several years of, even when the Bucs won the Super Bowl, Tom Brady was the quarterback, so that's not very new. You had the Eagles go to multiple Super Bowls. You had the Chiefs win multiple Super Bowls, etc. So most of this for the last 6 or 7 years, and I guess if you go further back, all the Brady Patriot stuff, has felt that it's just you got to knock a particular team out, or the team you needed to knock out in the AFC, they've already been knocked out. They're not even going to the playoffs. So that has just created a lot of parity for, I think, this season's playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. And I, honestly, I still think all the doom and gloom with what happened with Tampa today and what's been happening, and I understand not having any faith, but I do think, I don't think the Panthers will win next week against Seattle. I just think Seattle will win that one. And then, again, I still think this is shaping up to Week 18. Everything's on the line and you're at home. Again, that doesn't mean they're going to win because they lost to the Falcons and the Saints at home, but I think everything is shaping up where before the season, if you said, hey, you got one game and it's at home to get into the playoffs, you would have taken it. Now, you would have hoped you were so much ahead in the division that you're already in and you don't have to worry about it. But if it came down to one game, that's the kind of game you would have taken, in my opinion. But
Jaron, I'll say in 7 of the 8 divisions, what you said be true. In the NFC South, if it's
right.
coming out of Week 18, you are probably still pretty disappointed.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. All right, coming up next, we will give our player of the game. We'll also do our Q&A section. So get some questions in if you have any, but don't go anywhere. All right, we're back for one final segment. Player of the game. This one was a really tough one because I didn't think anyone necessarily really stood out in the game. I do want to give some props because Marcus brought him up earlier. Lavonte David, did have 10 tackles in the game, did have a sack. There were flashes of his old self, which at this point in his career, that's really all you're going to get. You'll get a flash of his old self, and it might even be a flash for a game, but it's not something that he can sustain for multiple games and of course, for a whole season. But I'll give him credit because I thought he had a really solid game.
I'll probably go with Lavoie if we go defense. Offensively, I like what Bucky did. I thought his 19 carries for 71 yards and a good 12-yard run. I thought he was very efficient and really just a running game in general. And somehow White always finds a way to give you a couple of big plays. Obviously he had the long run and then caught a pass. But I just feel like I would give it to David overall, even though I was very impressed with what they were trying to do with Bucky because they're trying to get him ready. Along with protecting the defense, the Bucs are still banking on going to the playoffs. I think in the back of their minds that they feel like they're still going to win this division and they're going to get into postseason play. But honestly, if I had to pick an overall player of the game, I would go with McMillan for the Panthers. I just thought 6 catches, 73 yards and a touchdown, man, with 10 targets. I just feel like that he was a matchup problem for the Bucs secondary. He just was. So overall for me would be him. But for the Bucs, I would give a defense. I would give it to Lavonte. He just needs more help. He just needs more help. We saw Pierre Paul and those guys get in there. It just didn't feel their presence. And then I just think that defensive backs I think they've lost confidence in themselves and in the system itself.
Yeah, Ted McMillan's been awesome for Carolina. I think he has surpassed Ibuka as the Rookie of the Year favorite. And again, that he doesn't have wildly bigger numbers than Ibuka. I think he was within a few yards either way coming in the game. Obviously, he had a few more yards than Emeka today, but I just look at Carolina being such a run-oriented offense, having quarterback questions to begin the year that Bryce Young has tried to help alleviate. And I think when you just the eye test on him, he's going to be a number 1 in the league, and Tampa's going to be dealing with him for a lot of years to come, unfortunately. But I think that the answer is probably Lavonte David. He did have double-digit tackles. He had a sack on one of those that Bryce Young kind of lost his footing on, made a couple tackles and gaps that were important and in some open space. So I thought Lavonte, which needed to be the case, because if anyone is going to lead this team, and I know he may not be the best defender that you have today in 2025, but But if anyone's going to lead this defense through all the turmoil, through all the question marks, it'd probably still be Lavoie David. So I thought that performance was important. I also thought that Jacob Harris and Benjamin Morrison on the corners did a quality job too. Again, Carolina not known for a renowned passing attack, but I thought that they, for the most part, played well. And yeah, offensively, again, it's hard to pinpoint any one guy standing out. I appreciate the workload that Bucky Irving took on, having 19 carries for 71 yards. But again, it's just kind of hard when this offense has the most reasons to succeed that it could have all year. I mean, I think Bredesen went on IR if I'm not mistaken. I know Mount did a couple weeks in the season. So this is what you have. Like this is the best unit you can come up with, and it should be a very darn good unit. But again, it's still underwhelmed in the key moments. It did not do enough. It did not have explosive plays other than the Ibuka play and a couple Baker scrambles. So it's hard to say anyone on offense just completely balled out. And again, I think that's a shame with where the Bucs are at right now.
Yeah, and I do think, there was a really serious conversation between McMillan and Ibuka of who was going to be the offensive player of the year for a while, and it was Ibuka, really, it was. He was the clear favorite. But the way McMillan has really come on late, as you mentioned, Ryan, he is showing that he's going to be a legit number one and one that the Bucs are going to have to deal with for a while. It's one of those things that when you go into the draft, you're drafting guys to mess with him. Like that's what you're going to have to do because he's a freak. He's really good. Outside of that, also, yeah, for the people watching this, get some more questions in. We would love to answer any of the questions, but yeah, I would agree with you guys because I didn't give an offensive player of the game. It was probably Bucky. I didn't think he played really good. I thought Rashad played really good early. He had that, 25, 30-yard run or something like that early in the game. I thought he had some really good moments. And overall, the running game as a whole, because Grizz did want to put an emphasis on it, and I thought they did execute a lot of the stuff that he was hoping for.
I think their offense is built to get the ball to their receivers and have a more balanced offense to scare anybody. I mean, that's why I said the last few teams said, go ahead and run the ball. If you want Bucky back from his injury, beat us, chew up some clock, but at the same time, you don't have a vertical passing game. And if the longest pass went to Ibuka, and that was in a desperate situation, a 40-yarder, great play. But if that's all you can muster up with those four receivers that you have, then you're not going to scare anybody. You're not tapping into your full potential. And on the flip side, if Carolina, who's a run-first team, a real run-first team, two good running backs, the whole deal, if they can go vertical and stretch a defense, then they're probably going to beat you. Because if you want to go run for run, then you're going to have to go pass for pass. I think Tampa Bay has to find a way to, and I know why they are running the ball. Protect the defense, obviously, get Bucky ready for playoff, protect that offensive line from having to try to drop back. You don't want Baker throwing the ball 40 times. So I think it comes down to they have to get into a situation where I think they need to pass the ball to get a lead and then run the ball to protect the lead. And that's how you protect your defense. But they have to play off of the defense too. And I think for Josh Grizzard, when you find yourself in a chess match where you're one mistake away from losing and you don't have that 10-point lead to where that one mistake doesn't hurt you, then every play call you make matters. Every play call you make has your underwear in a bunch. And so it's one of those things where they just can't separate from anybody on the scoreboard enough for either side of the ball to feel comfortable. Lastly, what I'll say is I thought Johnson did a fine job returning the ball today. He flipped the field twice, and I mean, to give them some breathing room and to get that offense going. I mean, and when you get that kind of help from special teams, then I think your offense should try to play off of that and complement it.
Marcus, real quick, I do want to ask you something. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan, but you've talked multiple times through these podcasts that they don't have a vertical passing game. Is that scheme? Is that they don't have someone that can take the top off? Is it the offensive line's not protecting very long? Because we've seen them have that in the past, and we know Baker does not worry about throwing it deep. Like, he loves airing it out, and he has a great arm. Or is it also one of those things like Todd Bowles is saying, hey, we can't put any balls in harm's way because of how bad our defense is. So we don't want you taking those shots down the field. What do you think it is?
I think it's a combination of things, and that's a great question. First of all, Mike, J-Mac, Chris, Emeka, they all went vertical in college. That's why they're in the National Football League, because they could do it. Now, when you start playing against other grown men defensive backs, then you won't see it as much. But I just think the deep ball is something that sometimes the coverage is taking it away. You don't want to just raise up and throw a vertical ball versus a corner that's 8 or 9 yards off. We saw him hit Mike last week on that Thursday. I think that was the most vertical I've seen them go. But I think it's partly scheme. Also, when you drop back and throw the ball deep, you have to protect the quarterback. So I don't know if they believe he has enough time, if that offensive line is going to give him time to go vertical, because that's a drop back pass. And so I just don't know if it's scheme, offensive line, what the defensive coverage is playing. And I just don't know who can just run by somebody. I mean, maybe Tez. I'm not saying he's a deep threat, big enough guy, but if you don't have that somewhere in your back pocket, then people are going to sit back and play bend but don't break defense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the one thing we can't do is say that the Bucs don't have enough weapons offensively to get this done. Like, they've got wide receiver Mike Evans going to the Hall of Fame. They've got the Hall of Very Good and Chris Godwin. They've drafted a first-round receiver, Emeka Egbuka. And even you mentioned someone like Tez Johnson, nice surprise. Okay, fine, he'll play 10% of the snaps, but he is probably your fastest or least quickest twitch guy. You can use him for something over the top and use the other guys as bait for that. I mean, you just have so much to go with offensively, on top of some really good running backs that don't drop off much when you go to their second and third options. So I just think that there's something schematically there where they've got to do more play action stuff. They've got to do more stuff over the top. And then I will say one other thing. You mentioned special teams for a second. I just wanted to kind of say this, that it's pretty sad we've got to the point where the Bucs are making the correct decision to kick it into the end zone and give you the 35-yard line every possession. Like, that's the correct move with what the Bucs kick coverage is right now. But it's sad that it's gotten the point where you have so little trust in your kick coverage unit that you're just saying, all right, here's the 35-yard line. That's like 2 first downs away from field goal range in the NFL, and the Bucs are kind of waving the white flag on that.
And we did get one question. I know we only have a little bit of time, but someone asked, I'll be able to put it up here for you guys, but is Baker's underwhelming season more on Baker or Grizzard's mid-play calling? It seems like this guy doesn't know what play action is, ran first and second all game. That's something Ryan's brought up many times. I personally think it's probably a combo. I think Baker, we also saw his play start to drop after the injury, so I wonder if that's still bothering him and just something that he hasn't been able to fully overcome. Remember that following week, we didn't think he should play. I believe that was against Arizona, and he did play. So he really hasn't taken any time off. So I think it's partly Baker, but I would say it is probably a scheme and the play calling and just not really having an identity.
I would say that it's a combination of everything. I think Baker's injury, I think injuries up front on the offensive line. Also think that Grizz has been in a situation where he has to call the game to where the offense doesn't lose the game instead of trying to win it. The defense has not really helped them much either. The Bucs really can't get into a track meet with anybody, and they really can't get in the phone booth and win a street fight either. So they're somewhere in between, and so I think that's why you're seeing the offense look like that. But a lot goes into offensive football when it comes to play calling.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the points you made, Marcus, I don't know if they trust their offensive line enough to do some of the deep stuff. Now, I think at this point, when you've had several weeks of underwhelming play, at some point, prove to me that's the issue. Like, just sit back there and take some of these longer drops and do a little bit more stuff. Because I have thought that I think there's a reason for a lot of what Josh Broussard's done, but I just think that now that you've got your weapons back, you have your tackles. And I know this is probably simplifying it too much, but your tackles help you pass block and your guards help you run block. And I know they got to all do it on every play. I get it. But When you have Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, and I know Gedeke did not have a good game today, but you got your 2 tackles, you got your center. Like, I mean, at some point you gotta sink or swim offensively. I feel like, because as a team they've been sinking for weeks. So clearly what they have done has not been enough. We argued about that with Bowles and the defense last week. Clearly what you've been doing has not been enough. So I think offensively this week they've got to find some more imagination against a pretty bad Dolphins team. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And it probably makes fans even more sick at home, because if you're watching the Jaguars right now, they're up 31-17 and about to score again. They're at 1st and goal at the 5. So seeing what Liam Cohen is doing, knowing everything that took place, is probably not the most fun. But all right, Bucs Squad, thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back, I believe, Monday. I won't be able to be there, but I think it'll be Marcus, Ryan, and James. Y'all are doing Monday, right, this week? Monday night?
We have not decided yet, but I believe that's the way we're leading.
If it's not Monday, it'll be Tuesday. It'll be one of those 2 for you guys. But remember, again, this is just extra content we do. We do it twice a week, but doesn't take anything from what James does. He does a great job. So follow him and watch his content. But until next time, fire the cannons.